I used to think that when you die, it's just lights out. No heaven, no hell, just nothing. I wasn't just skeptical. I was convinced that spirituality was a crutch for people who couldn't face the finality of it all. And then one day my heart stopped. What I saw and who I met didn't just change my mind. It changed everything. And I quickly found out I'm not the only one who's been through this. Not by a long shot. Section 1. The Skeptic's Life. Before we get to that moment, you have to understand the man I was. My world was built on logic and hard evidence. For me, life was a simple biological equation. You're born, you live for a bit, and then you're gone. That was it. Honestly, I found a strange kind of comfort in that certainty. No cosmic strings attached, no final judgment, just a clean, scientific end. Religion? I saw it as a collection of stories we told ourselves to feel better about the great unknown. I'd listen to my friends talk about their faith, nod politely, but on the inside, I just felt a little sorry for them. It seemed like they were clinging to ancient myths while I was living in the real world. The idea of an afterlife, let alone meeting a figure like Jesus, was something I would have openly laughed at. In my mind, it wasn't just improbable, it was impossible. My belief was simple. Consciousness is a product of the brain. When the brain dies, the lights go out. It was a neat, tidy, and ultimately empty worldview. But it was mine. Section 2. The Moment of Crisis. Life has a funny way of challenging your most deeply held beliefs. For me, that challenge came on a Tuesday afternoon that started like any other. I was at work, sitting in a meeting, when a sharp, crushing pain exploded in my chest. It felt like a vice was tightening around my heart, literally stealing the air from my lungs. The room began to spin, and the voices of my colleagues faded into a distant, muffled hum. I remember seeing the panic in their eyes as I slumped forward. The last thing I heard was someone shouting my name, and then blackness. I had to piece together what happened next from doctors and the people who were there. I'd had a massive heart attack, a sudden cardiac arrest. For several minutes, paramedics worked frantically, but my heart had stopped. No pulse, no breathing. Medically speaking, I was gone. According to my own lifelong philosophy, this was the end. This was the moment the flame was supposed to be extinguished for good, but it wasn't. Section 3. The Journey and the Encounter. Instead of nothingness, there was awareness. It was a gentle, painless feeling of separation. One moment I was in agony. The next I was floating near the ceiling, looking down at the chaos below. I could see my own body on the floor, pale and lifeless, as the paramedics worked on me. I saw them use the defibrillator, saw my body jolt, but I felt no connection to it. There was no pain, no panic, just a profound sense of peace that's still hard to describe. Then the room dissolved. I was pulled into a darkness that wasn't scary. It was more like a soft, velvety void. In the distance, a pinpoint of light appeared. I felt myself moving toward it, not because I decided to, but because I was being gently guided. As I got closer, the light grew until it was a brilliant, all-encompassing radiance. It wasn't a blinding light, though. It was a living light, and it was radiating pure, unconditional love, a love more real and powerful than anything I had ever known on earth. And in the center of that light, a figure stood. I couldn't make out a face in the way we see faces, but I knew, with a certainty that went beyond sight or logic, that it was Jesus. This wasn't the Jesus from paintings. This was a being of pure love and total acceptance. There I was, a lifelong atheist, face to face with the person I had spent my life dismissing as a myth, and all I felt was home. Section 4. The Message. We didn't speak in words. The communication was instant, a direct knowing. He didn't ask me about my skepticism or my sins. He already knew everything about me, and there was zero judgment. I experienced that life review that so many people talk about, but it happened in a flash. I saw my entire life, not just from my own eyes, but from the perspective of every person I had ever interacted with. I felt the joy I had brought them, and I felt the pain my carelessness had caused. It wasn't a punishment. It was an education in empathy. The core understanding that filled my entire being was that love is the only thing that's truly real. It's the fundamental fabric of existence. Fear, anger, and hate are the illusions we get tangled up in here on Earth. Our purpose isn't to pile up money or achievements, but simply to learn how to love each other, and just as important, to learn to love ourselves. I was shown that every single soul is infinitely precious and loved, no matter what. He let me know that there is no reason to fear death, because it's not an end. It's a transition back to our true home. And then I was told that it wasn't my time, that I had more to learn and now more to share. Section 5. The evidentiary bridge. Returning to my body was a jolt, a painful, reluctant slam back into the physical world. As I recovered, I was left with this incredible secret. How could I, the hardcore rationalist, tell anyone that I met Jesus? I was sure I had just hallucinated, that my dying brain had put on one last desperate show. So I did the only thing I knew how. I started researching. I had to prove to myself that it was all a trick of the mind. But what I found shook me more than the experience itself. My story wasn't unique. I discovered a huge amount of research into near-death experiences, or NDEs. It turns out there are thousands of documented accounts from people of all ages, cultures, and beliefs, including other atheists, who report strikingly similar things. Now, experiences can vary greatly, and some are even distressing, but common themes pop up again and again. Leaving the body, moving through a tunnel toward a light, meeting a being of love, and feeling an overwhelming peace. I also came across authors like Pastor John Burke, who has analyzed these testimonies from a faith perspective, highlighting how often they align with scriptural concepts, even when reported by people with no religious background. Of course, neuroscience has its own theories. Researchers suggest NDEs could be caused by a lack of oxygen to the brain, a flood of neurochemicals, or a dreamlike state called REM intrusion. But for many who've been through it, these explanations feel incomplete. They don't seem to fully account for how clear, lucid, and organized the experience feels, often described as feeling more real than real. Then there are the more puzzling cases. There are anecdotal reports of veridical perception, where people claim they saw or heard specific details, like the serial number on a medical device, while they were verifiably unconscious or clinically dead. These claims are highly controversial and haven't been proven under rigorous scientific conditions, but they raise fascinating questions. There are even contested reports from people blind from birth who describe having sight for the first time during their NDE, a phenomenon that continues to challenge easy explanations. For me, though, the most powerful evidence was the after effects, and research consistently confirms this. Systematic studies show that people who have NDEs often undergo profound, lasting transformations. They report a significant increase in spirituality and compassion, and a major decrease in the fear of death, far more than people who have a close call with death but no NDE. I was living proof of that. Section 6. The New Reality. My life today is unrecognizable. That deep, subconscious fear of death that drove my entire worldview. It's gone. In its place is a profound sense of peace and purpose. The world no longer seems like a chaotic random accident. It feels interconnected, and my priorities have completely flipped. I'm no longer focused on what I can get, but on what I can give. I'm not an atheist anymore. My experience didn't push me into a specific religion, but it gave me a direct relationship with that divine love I now know as God and as Jesus. It's no longer a belief. It's a certainty that was born from experience. CTA and conclusion. The message I brought back wasn't just for me. It's for you. It's the simple, powerful truth that you are unconditionally loved, that your life has a profound purpose, and that death is not an ending to be feared. It's a doorway to a reality more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. What I've shared is my story, but it echoes thousands of others. I'm not asking you to abandon your own skepticism. I, of all people, would never ask that. But I am asking you to be open. What do you think? Have you or someone you know had a similar experience? Let's talk about it in the comments. Sharing these stories is how we start to piece together the bigger picture. And if this resonated with you, please consider sharing it with someone who might need to hear this message today. Thank you for listening.